That's what you get for going cold.
Dennis, my brother.
Out of the batter's box.
How are we doing
Hello.
on this lovely evening?
Oh, the sun is out. It snowed today, but we'll persevere. It snowed yesterday, too.
It snowed on the lovely dogwoods.
It is April. It is. Oh, they brushed the snow off, and the sun came out, and they said, we don't care. A little snow. We're resilient.
We're also white.
We're the... That's why they call us the dogwood, right? They're not a weak little thing. They're like a dog on a leash. In fact, that's their formal Latin name.
Yes.
Dogma en leasha.
Canino en lesion. Yes, something like that.
So you sent me quite a video of a hike. Not only did it feel like I was on the hike with you, but it took as long.
Yes. This past Sunday, and it was just glorious. I appreciate these outings so much. I found a local hike. I have this app that shows me local hikes that are available. And normally they start in a town and they go up a mountain and come back down a mountain, and then you end up back in the town. And the problem is, though, the app, the map that it gives you, is from different waypoints along the trail. Right. So you can imagine when you're on a hike and you see a tree that is spray painted with the color of your trail or whatever, and you realize, okay, I'm on the right trail. And then until you get to the next tree, you are just assuming that you're on the right trail. And so this app, it's not even with that granularity. It's someone has gone and done this hike and they took photos in interesting places. And the map that it gives you is a straight fucking line from each point where someone recorded that they were on the trail. So you end up with this sort of pseudo map that says, okay, in general, we're going to go from here to here to here to here to here. But then...
As the crow flies.
Right, but it's not as the human hikes. No. So the problem is, I've got this app that is telling me my current location and is showing me the map. And so when the trail veers off in one direction to go around a big obstacle or something, the app says, alert, 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 you've lost the trail. Alert, alert.
No.
And so this gives you all of this
annoying.
doubt.
You didn't keep it on, did you?
Of course. I have to see where the freaking trail goes.
But not the whole time. You obviously could probably bump from tree to tree, but you wouldn't want to lose your internet, perhaps.
Right. No, but what happens is you're walking along the trail and you get to a fork. And
you say, what the fork is this? Now what the fork do I do?
And my kids, who got in the habit of going ahead of everyone, would call and say, left or right? And I would open up the app and I would be like, our next waypoint, it looks like it's to the left, so I guess we're going to go left here. And anyway, it was an adventure. And there was one point where we hiked for about 20 minutes in the wrong direction.
Oh.
And then we got to this road, and we were like, oh, look, a road. Civilization.
There ain't a road on the map.
And then I looked at the map, and I was like, oh, no, we are not in the right place. So we had to hike back another 20 minutes back to the place where we were. But it was super cool, because I live in this amazing place where there are these mountains and caves and shit. And we actually walked right by, I must have discussed it on a previous episode, but this place where there are these ancient cave paintings from 20,000 years ago, where clearly someone was gifted enough and I guess trusted as the spiritual leader enough to not have to be hunting all the time, but to be the spiritual leader and to be able to go and paint these things on these caves. And it's just wild. So any little cave that we see, like, you can easily...
caves?
There were several caves.
Huh. Cool.
And
caves are...
And there was one that was just like this little sort of room. It was probably 10 feet by 10 feet was the square footage.
Cavage.
Yeah.
Square cavage.
Square cavage, yes. And it was just this little sort of hollow in the rock. And we went in there, and like, it's so easy to imagine someone 50,000 years ago seeking shelter there, or any manner of bear or whatever
it
just decided
makes such good sense.
Right. And
this would be good.
Right, exactly. And it lets you not communicate, but empathize with people from another time in a way.
Perhaps communicate. If you would open yourself up to it, perhaps communicate.
Right.
Perhaps.
Maybe I was trying to communicate, and they were the ones that were closed. Just saying.
You could see them sitting around the campfire, roasting some rat, and saying, you don't believe in that stuff, do you? No, man, it's honky. No one from the future will ever be able to know what's going on here.
Exactly. And
possible.
That was pretty cool. And also I love my kids when they are home. they're all about, I need my screen. I want my iPad. I want my TV. I want my whatever. And and it's hard to get them to do anything else.
I want my MTV.
Exactly.
I want my MTV.
Right. The modern version of that was, I want my
Is that
iPad, YouTube.
what?
Yeah.
I want my Siri.
No. Nobody wants
I
to.
just listen to that the other day. Jam do it. So I have.
Hold on, I want to complete my hike story.
But more on the hike.
So
back to the hike.
it's
Sorry.
just glorious
We'll let
for
the
me
hike do so.
to be out there with my kids, and they are running around and trying to find who can find the bigger rock, and who, and it's in the same way that hiking, like I say, brings back these genetic memories of just as a hominid walking one foot in front of the other in front of another person or behind another person. For sure, I know that 100,000 years ago, there were men and women, humans, walking around, and their kids were running around finding the biggest rock that they could find. And it's just it feels so fucking natural in a way that I find pleasing, in a way that the latest video game is not.
Yeah. Just the breathing of the fresh air. I take my grandkids out and we walk. We went through the park the other day. I had a stroller, which wasn't built for the rougher paths, but it's what we had, and she wanted to do it, so we did it. And she walked some and was in the stroller. But I got some great shots of her just sitting on a bench looking at the wetlands. And next to her on the bench are the two stuffed animal friends that she brought with her, Whitebird and Robin, two little stuffed
Whitebird
birds
and Robin
sitting on the bench. Oh, and just to be outside and to breathe that, see that, calm down. The motion that water that mesmerizes you, or the movement of clouds, or in the case of in a forest with a view, the movement of the very tips of the trees in the wind, and that motion which surrounds you and is also each of the trees in their own peculiar motion.
Right.
It's that we've talked about that before. That's been going on since the beginning of time.
Right.
That's why people go and stare at shit, because it makes them feel better.
Exactly. There's so much research about how spending 3 hours in a place that is green bring the human mind into a place that is then more creative and more productive. It's just centered,
centered and focused and clearer. And right now would be usually typically the time I walk, and so I'm fortunate on a cold day like today where it's probably 37 out. It snowed earlier when the clouds moved in. The sun is shining bright. And in April, that means something. It's not July, but the sun is warms, and particularly when you get down into the woods near the wetlands, where you're in a more of a protected spot like a valley in the middle of the woods. So we got lots to talk about. You finished the new Pope, my word.
Hold on. One more thing you mentioned about being surrounded by woods that came to me is when we stopped after we had gone the wrong way and we had made it all the way back to where we had turned wrong. That was when we decided to sit down and eat our sandwich that we brought. And I opened up Google Maps just to see where we were, and the entire fucking screen of Google Maps was just forest with our little pinpoint in the middle. And I was like, wow, like the satellite map of where we are is we ain't nowhere.
Right.
It was just fantastic.
That's some powerful stuff.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, tree's been around a whole lot longer than us. It's their damn planet.
Amen to that. Yeah, so I watched the third to last episode. I guess there are 9 in total. So I started watching the third to last over the weekend, and then I decided, look, I have to push through this and finish the damn thing. And wow, you promised that it wouldn't disappoint, and it was pretty darn good at the end. And as we have discussed previously about how ambiguity of endings.
Yes.
With the Inception, for example, where the top is spinning and they cut to black, and some people hate that because they want to know, was he really dreaming or not?
Yeah.
And here they carry Pius and they set him down somewhere, and he certainly looks incapacitated, and then it's assumed that then
Incapacitated. He's dead.
he looks dead.
He's,
I mean,
why? Wait a minute. This isn't ambiguous.
why is he dead?
Pius dies. Pius dies at the end of the new pope.
And that was clear how?
He dies in ecstasy. He dies in ecstasy at the hands of his followers.
Okay.
It was a temporary return, and he died as a partial reincarnation of Jesus Christ. That wasn't ambiguous to me.
It wasn't exactly 3 days, was it? No, he had a week. Okay.
Oh,
Interesting.
but that's my interpretation. I don't know that I'm necessarily right about that. I suppose there's probably thousands of words written on blogs about just that very assumption on my part. Or it's not an assumption, because I wouldn't assume. It's my conclusion.
Yeah, and I'm convinced, first of all, the writing was tied up in such a bow that there can be no more series on this in this universe. I'm pleased with
that's
that.
not true. Oh, in this universe. Although
Voyello could, man, I would watch another series of Voyello's papacy, because
how about the baby that Pius miracled into the world becomes a young priest and starts to show the very traits of none other than, guess who? The young pope. Would be worth it. Viola in his 90s.
No, yeah, Voyello is, aside from Jude Law, the star of the series. He's just amazing.
As it turns out, he is the most honest of anyone there.
He tells things like they are.
Unclear about stuff. He's
Right.
never unclear about stuff. A better way to say this is that he is the most certain character in the entire series. Everyone else has issues and questions. He is never uncertain. There's a few moments.
So in the penultimate episode, Malkovich Pope, whatever his name is,
The new pope.
yeah, it's
Pope
John Paul III. His speech was pretty fucking fantastic about how we are the downtrodden,
The disenfranchised.
the disenfranchised.
Disenfranchised.
Yes, and we are the people that the bullies made fun of, and we have come together, and we now are the church. And that was fucking motivating. Like
It was. And the thing is, in hindsight, that was the single most powerful and clear glimpse of Braxton.
Yes,
That was
his most honest moment.
moment.
yes, I agree. And
And it was so powerful.
it was nice to get the backstory on how his brother died, in accident or something. And it was.
Did you ever have any doubt that the box he reached for was heroin?
That is never explained.
Yes, it was. Very clearly. Shall I bring you your box? How did his brother die? His brother died because he was so high on heroin. He's been on it ever since. That's not a mystery.
It was never explicitly said.
Yes, it's explicit. It's explicit.
Amen.
He says in his confession that he is a drug addict, and that he recalls at that very time of admission, during that moment, how his brother died, and indicated, without any lack of clarity, he didn't state it, but was absolutely clear from what he said, that he's been a heroin addict since he was about 16.
He certainly said, I could have helped, but I didn't because I was messed up.
He said, because I was so high on heroin that I couldn't think straight, or I couldn't. That's not the word.
Yeah.
But he said it. So, at any rate, whether your skill at interpretation is a bit numbed by various things that have happened to you in your past, the dropping on the head as a child, the recurrent nightmares, but.
I thought it was just a box of chamomile tea that he would have every night.
Say that again?
That was just a box of chamomile tea that he would have every night. Yeah.
Right. Reaching for the box with a shaken skeletal hand. I think it's another pretty strong clue.
Okay, but man, I freaking love Jude Law. And,
so that picture.
and I was so bored. I was so pleased to have his return because without him, the show dragged.
When do you feel the show was without him? Because he never left the show. He was omnipresent, excuse the pun, but he was omnipresent throughout. At the end of the episode of the first season,
he wasn't moving for 7 of the 9 episodes of the first season of the second season.
That's just false. That's just false. And now on top of it, poor memory. You can't you look. You got to sharpen up.
Okay,
If you want to
a finger
record
twitch
this
is not acting. I'm just going to go out there and say
Excuse me.
a finger twitch is not acting.
Here's a question for you. The camera's on you. How long do you wait till you twitch your finger? That's acting, my friend. That's acting.
Hold on, I got a finger twitch
wanna
for you
make
right
here. That's not a finger twitch. That's a finger crank.
here.
That happens to be the finger I can't bend, just for you. So the parting image of Pope Pius at the feet of the Virgin Mary in the exact pose as a mirror image of Jesus in his arms, and understanding that the death of his beloved fellow orphan, all of that stuff of having two dead bodies, and there being two of things. There's two brothers. There's this. There's two parents. They could rename the show "Deuces Are Wild."
Wow.
Deuces Are Wild.
So in his death pose, he has his fingers together like this, in a way that is a Catholic symbol, because thumb and ring finger together is a known symbol in Catholicism for
yes, and that is
for the Holy Trinity.
The only appropriate way to hold the wafer that is the body of Christ. Those are the fingers, and only those fingers that are used to hold the host.
Okay.
It's not these two.
Huh.
It's not these. It's these two.
It's not
You know
the
why?
ring finger.
Because they're second. 2 and 2. Wild deuces. Deuces are wild. The new pope.
Pair of deuces. Let's eat the body.
You said you wished he'd come back, and so I have to comment that I find it strange that your imagination wasn't rife with the notion that the Pope who ended episode 1 in a coma wasn't lurking in the background like an ominous deep bass that you knew at any moment was going to reappear. It was like a humming sound to me.
I mean,
it was there.
The fact that it's a coma means that it's a comma in the screenplay.
Yes. And that he won't soon be making a dash. And that's all I have to say about that. Period.
Exactly. Full stop. Yes. I'm glad that he came back. But so remember my concern about the Islamist folks. That payoff was pretty clear. Although by clear, yes, something happened, but I don't really understand why some terrorists took an elementary school class hostage.
You don't.
And what they were asking for.
Their demand was simple. One of two things. Deliver us Pope Pius or deliver us his body. That was their demand. It was simple and straightforward.
Isn't that just one demand?
It's two demands.
It's deliver us Pope Pius,
Live
dead or alive. Wanted, dead
demand
or
number
alive.
1. Send us Pope Pius alive. Number 2. Just in case number 1 can't happen. Parentheses, see above, end of parentheses. Bring us his body.
There's an excess of punctuation in this episode, I believe.
Hey,
Ellipses.
so you're going to post that picture you sent me of the two popes and the wonderful paintings juxtaposed behind them as the background.
That was just a moment, and the whole show is full of these moments of people positioned in front of.
It's one of the most creative things I've ever seen, both by screenplay and the entire the story itself. The story itself is just the most fucking creative thing I've seen. And I saw the remake of The Godfather, the third Godfather, the other day, renamed Coda, the death of Don Corleone. It was recut.
Okay, recut.
Not remade. It was recut.
Okay.
It was recut. Although I suspect that there was a new scene inserted with Al Pacino, which was the closing scene. But my point is that in that concluding episode, they had a pope who was murdered. But it was because of his views on financial matters.
That's why most popes are murdered.
Not unlike what was driving much of what went on in both series, the finances of the Vatican. And the elaborate.
In history, there were times where, over the course of 2 years, there were like 7 popes because they just kept getting murdered.
Yeah,
I don't like this pope.
Those were the days.
Let's kill him.
Those were the days.
Yeah. And how do you feel about Esther's conversion or agreeing to be to help the bad guys.
So this is my take on Esther. That's a good question because the change in Esther was extraordinarily sudden.
And I knew as soon as all the terrorists started taking off their hats, I saw her blue eyes, and I was like, oh,
yes,
Esther, that's you, baby.
And the moment when she lost it was when she murdered the old lady on the old lady's balcony.
Yes.
Who the Pope brought back to life with a twitch of his finger at the exact same time that Pope John Francis died of a drug overdose planted by the ambassador, who is quite a character, by the way. We haven't spoken about the ambassador. He's always eating fucking mussels.
Oh.
Always eating mussels.
You mean Ambassador, he's the cleaner-upper...
he's the, yes.
guy that makes shit happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's always eating clams, yeah. He's
the fixer.
And
it's a great scene at the end when he says, now that's all over, what am I going to do? Life is just going to be boring.
I'm tired of all these fucking clams, he says.
Does he?
Yeah. He says, I'm going to go to Korea, I think he says. There's some action happening over there. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The interviews, do you watch the behind the story interviews after every other show?
No. I literally finished the last episode and then...
So, they have, you must scan through the commentary that they provide.
I don't know that my HBO system shows that to me, but I'm aware that there are series that have that available, but I have not seen any.
Does.
Okay.
This does, and I suggest you missed it, not that it doesn't have it for you. I can't imagine them removing that from a subscription. Wouldn't that be expensive? To figure out who has it and who knows. Well, anyway, doesn't matter. But my point is this: the interviews with the director and the creator and the writers are astounding.
Nice.
With what they say. Now, I don't care. I don't much care to listen to them at the beginning of a series. I just want to be mesmerized by the story and the characterization. I don't want to analyze it. But upon as this has been my second and third viewing, then I will listen to that.
Yeah, I used to have some TV shows where there was a video you could watch after each episode that was like as long as the episode, where it was just the people talking about it.
Oh.
And I also have some TV shows like Better Call Saul, which is on your list after Breaking Bad.
I've heard about that
because it's a prequel. But anyway, and they
it's a prequel to Breaking Bad.
It's a prequel to Breaking Bad. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And it's made by the same people, and they have this podcast where they, after each episode, they release a podcast talking about the particular episode and the editing choices and the shot choices, and they have if there's an actor that particularly was important in that episode, they have them on, and they talk about how they made these decisions about this and whatnot. And what's fascinating is that they record them all out of sequence. So, like, they could be recording the one for episode 9 before the one for episode 2, because like it's all been shot and they're just like trying to coordinate people getting together to talk about a particular episode. Right. And but it's super fascinating. I love that particular podcast. I will put a link in the show notes at happyhour.fm/107. 107. Yep.
Yes. Now, wow. And what else did we exchange? Did I send you anything? I don't think I sent you much. Oh, I have an update on my truck.
Where is your truck? Have you bought the truck? Is it black or is it green?
The day before I was to go test drive it and take it so I could take it to my garage.
Yes.
Which was all prearranged. They called me and said, we have bad news. The service center found out that the transmission is bad, and we ended up selling it wholesale. It's no longer available.
The truck that you wanted.
And I said, yeah.
And then you said that you had total rights to buy. And they sold it.
I was first on the list, that's all. That was the only commitment. Now, what I should have said to him was, oh, so what you're telling me is that somebody who works in the service center knew somebody who needed a truck, and that person beat me in line?
Oh, baby.
Is that what you meant to say? I didn't quite understand what you're saying about you sold it to wholesale. Do you want to show me? So a little while later, I called purposely and hoped I'd get somebody else besides this guy, and I did. Because he was off. I understood he was off. And I said, hey, Bob, this is Elliot. Can I help you? Hey, you know that 2009 Tacoma that was in the service that you've been waiting to get out on your lot now for a few weeks? He said, oh, yeah. That truck. I said, yeah, so it was in the service center. And he said, oh, like he didn't know. And I said, I guess what? It went to wholesale? And he said, I don't know. I thought, The fuck you don't. You know,
Lying
this
motherfuckers.
service center's guy's son, looking for a truck, said, I can't find a used Toyota Tacoma anywhere. And
You had
so
the perfect truck. You had your
that's part, but this
eyes
is
on the
all
prize.
suspicion. This is all suspicion.
No,
Part
I
two
think
is-
it's all conspiracy. I think QAnon got up in there and was like,
And I was suspicious because in the pictures of the truck had pizza boxes in the back.
right? That's
Yes.
Hillary
They seem to
needed
be
that.
arranged in
The
type of
children.
order.
Hillary needed that to move the children prostitutes to the pizza parlor. And
Listen, man, this is what I noticed. The pizza boxes in the back of the truck, it had all the anchovies from the pizzas were removed from the pizza. And they were lying on top of the pizza boxes. And they looked to be like Egyptian hieroglyphics. Now you tell me, I know they said something. The anchovies are speaking to me.
if it wasn't a pentagram, I guess what could the hieroglyphs mean? It could be conjuring the ancient pharaoh of the Tacoma lands, or
Tacoma.
right. That sounds like something that a devil worshiper would chant before the fire. Tacoma.
So this is what I did. I held my phone in my hands, and I said KBB, 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 again and again and again. Kelly Blue Book, Kelly Blue Book, Kelly Blue Book.
Uh-huh.
Opened up the app
Does that?
and said Tacoma, Tacoma, Tacoma. And up on the screen comes what? Not a 2009 Toyota Tacoma four-wheel drive access cab under 150,000 miles, but a 2011
Oh,
Toyota
shit,
Tacoma
dog.
four-wheel drive access cab.
Tacoma,
And
Tacoma,
to tie up a story, which this is why I know this is the truck. It's green.
Fuck
So
yeah.
I will become an honest man that I have, in fact, a green truck.
See, the universe
It all comes together.
dangled this truck before you, and you were salivating, and then the universe took it away because
Salivating.
it knew
Yes, that's
to give you,
You know what?
your true
God
love.
salivates. God
What?
salivates.
God salivates.
God salivates.
What do you think rain is?
Right. I got to tell you this. I've seen this movie before, but I never watched as much of it as I did last night when I was channel surfing. It's Jennifer Aston and Paul Rudd
Aniston,
in a
yes.
comedy where they leave high-stress Manhattan lives and go live on a commune. And the dude who is the guru,
Yes.
who of course isn't a guru.
Oh, yes, I've seen this movie.
Yes, there's a few things that struck me about it. One, Paul Rudd is just so funny to begin with.
I
But
adore the
this-
fuck out of Paul Rudd. I want to be his friend so bad.
He's very funny. And the thing that I want to draw your attention to as a digital master is how they digitized the guru's hands as he played amazing guitar, and how absolutely seamless it was. Rougher than it is now because the movie's a few years old. But that was,
This movie is called Wanderlust,
yes.
2012. One
struck
year
that?
younger
What
than
struck
your
that?
future truck. Yes.
Oh,
I've seen
anyway,
this.
it's all of this mantra stuff, and the guru is saying that he's screaming out the terrible things in the world that he hates, and he's emptying himself of the nastiness of the terrible things, and he's yelling out famine and war. Paul Rudd is just stuck in this mediocre set of things that make him mad, and he keeps footnoting them with. And Jennifer Aston is funny as hell in the look she
Jennifer
gives him and says, "You're doing great," because he knows he isn't, she knows he isn't, and the guru keeps yelling at him and says, "No, you've got to be more universal." And he tries, but he can't get out of the fax machine doesn't work, and the coffee maker is on the bus.
Right. And
I enjoyed it.
that's Paul Rudd is the perfect everyman.
Yeah,
Like he's cute enough to be the rom-com primary object, and
as long as
but
he's
he's
got a short actress.
but he's silly enough to be, you can, as a male viewer, you can identify with him.
Yeah, and he's a good actor.
He's fantastic.
It's hard to be funny when you're what's happening is funny. You don't want to be funny.
Right.
Your character's funny. You're not going to say funny things or try to be funny. It's just what's happening is funny. And the take on that. I mean, the scene when he's in the bathroom on the toilet and everybody decides to join him. Somebody says, "Oh," the woman comes in the bathroom and this dude is talking to him, borrowing his car, and she says, "Oh, I didn't interrupt any man time, did I?" And he looks at her and says, "Actually, it was me time."
Nice.
He's gonna take a dump.
He has a great series. It's on Netflix, which again you are not yet enabled with. He has a great series called Living with Yourself. And it is, you know how Michael Keaton did that movie called Duplicity, where he was able to clone himself,
yes.
And there were a bunch of people.
5 times.
Yes. So this Living with Yourself series.
Well, 4 times. There were 5 of them.
Yes. Is this, it's your typical, he's upper middle class dad guy. I guess they're trying to start a family. And he bumps into some friend from college, and his friend from college, who used to be a total loser, is like the head of some big corporation or something. And he says, "Look, man, all I did was I went to this one spa where they have these Korean folks that did this thing to me, and now I'm the most centered, productive version of myself." And so Paul Rudd goes to this place after a while, after feeling like, boy, I'm in the way that Paul Rudd is so perfect at feeling like a loser, like projecting this I'm wealthy but I'm also a loser way of being. He goes to this place, right. And it turns out that what they are doing is they are cloning and adjusting some DNA, and then they release the clone that has the exact memories of the person that came in, and then they murder the person that came in. And
oh no!
Look, okay,
that's a twist.
Hold on, I want to go back to this, and so when they do his, something goes wrong, and both of them survive, and they both go back to their home, and they both are like, "Who are you? What are you doing with my wife? Why do you look like me? What the fuck?"
And the client literally pays the company to kill his former self.
They don't know that. They walk in, and then they feel like they come out as a better person. And the fact is, they're coming out as the clone that has been improved, and the person that went in is killed.
By whom?
They bury them alive.
By the company?
Sadly.
Huh? What?
They're more or less buried alive, which is crazy.
They're buried alive?
That's one way to kill someone. But no,
it's little. Oh, is it like the worst way to die?
Okay, so this whole concept, let's leave that aside. I highly recommend everyone go watch Living with Yourself. I'll put that in the show notes. But the people that have really thought about in Star Trek, where you have the transporter, where they take all of your particles that are you, they encode them into data,
take you apart, right,
and they send them somewhere else, and then somewhere else there's a thing that can take that data and bring it back into actual particles, and pretty clearly, if something went wrong, and either they weren't able to destroy the you that they scanned, and they were able to recreate the you that they scanned, it's the same situation. And also, if they were able to destroy the you that they scanned, and then there was some bug in the code that was going to recreate you,
a bug, aka the fly.
That's my terminology, but so the whole, like, clearly the transporter is killing you and then recreating something that looks like you. And for people that believe in, like, the soul and there's something inside me that isn't part of my body, like the dualists, that's a problem. And it's your characterization of what happens in Star Trek with the people that go through the transporter is way jilted. There is no sense in Star Trek that when you end up on the other side of that transporter that you're somehow a new being that looks like the other. It is that person in toto, correct? You're not suggesting anything other than that, are you? What else could it be?
In Star Trek specific.
So
you said that they lost their soul somehow in the transportation, and you also intimated that they're killed and then they're replaced with, as if that was Star Trek, but that's not Star Trek. That's the basis of the movie, of the Paul Rudd series you're talking about, right? Not Star Trek.
Okay, but what are they doing in Star Trek? Because are they also encoding your soul and sending it?
But what they're not doing is they're not just creating something that's similar. Whatever their point, that we have to suspend belief, is that what they're doing is that they're transporting the entire person 100% completely unchanged.
Right.
If it weren't the case, that is a suspension of belief that defies your step into the science. And I can understand why in the series you're talking about, the Paul Rudd series, that's
No. Let's leave the Paul Rudd thing aside. Let's focus on the Star Trek. Clearly, in theory, if you could step into a tube and that tube could analyze the exact state of all of the particles that make up you, and could, in another tube, somehow create particles that matched exactly with all of the carbon and oxygen and potassium and everything that were in your body, to make that, it's not...
That's not what they're doing in Star Trek.
But they don't have to destroy one copy of you to make a new copy of you.
This is the thing I think that you're missing. When the transporter has got the subject in the tube,
yeah,
the first thing the transporter does is it breaks that being down into molecules that are small enough to do the following: transport them through a time machine like thing to another location.
It's the same molecules.
It's not. They're not replicating. There's not two tubes. There's only one. It's sort of like in Star Wars when they jump the Star War. What is it called? The
hyperspace.
Time warp. Or the what is it?
Hyperspace. Or
hyperspace.
Yeah.
It's like hyperspace, right? So I think you know what you're digging into here. This is interesting. It's interesting. You're thinking about the way you're going to do it, or the way that you would do it. Maybe the way you're going to do it. Maybe you're putting together a project. Remind me of a movie about a project before I forget. But anyway, back to your...
I can neither confirm nor deny that I am copy number 7.
That in itself is a confirmation, is it not?
I mean...
The only reason you would say that is because it was true.
You should have seen copy number 5. He could barely walk. But yeah. So anyway, for my hike, I wore some new boots, and now I'm limping because I have a big blister.
Yeah, you never wear your new boots first on a hike. That's like rule number 1 in the rule book of what man had ever since he was a caveman.
Right.
You don't know the rule.
So
don't ever use your new hiking boots on a hike the first time you use them.
So they aren't actually new. They're actually like 4 years old. We bought them when we went up to be in the snow one time, and then I put them away. And
they're new for your feet.
Exactly.
You can try to nuance your way out of some excuse-riddled disclaimer on why.
So what do I do to make them not new?
Doesn't apply to you. Say it again.
What do I do to make them not new and blister me?
Break them in. You could have strapped them onto the legs of another beast, and they could have been worn in. That's one thing you could have done. You also...
That would have been great for copy number 4 that could barely walk.
Here's another things to do with hiking boots, depending on what they're made out of, is that you can take them and really manipulate them in your hands and bend the toes and twist them and bend the heels and work on them and oil them up and rub them in a caring but carefree fashion.
Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional.
You're starting to bounce in your seat. It's a bad sign at this point in the podcast. But
yeah, so I don't know
how
to
do that, but that's not going to replace walking in the neighborhood in a little bit.
And my left foot is just fine. It was just my right foot that gets rubbed the wrong way. So, what the hell?
You know why? It's more sensitive. That's why it's more sensitive.
Yeah, I guess so. But anyway,
what was your take on this blues tune, the 1919 Influenza Blues? You came across this, and what's the deal?
Yeah, I was listening to this podcast about what we can learn from the previous Spanish flu epidemic, and how they had all of these scenarios where, first of all, it's called the Spanish flu, but it originated in Texas somewhere at a military base, and it spread through the infantry that were training for World War I, and then the infantry went over to Europe, and we're all in close fucking quarters in the trenches, and it was just the perfect scenario for a flu to spread, an influenza, and that we have very little because the war was going on. Like, that's, first of all, that's why they call it the Spanish flu, is Spain was not participating in World War I, and so they were the ones that were actually like talking about how shitty this flu was, and how many people it was killing. And everyone else was all engaged in the war and didn't want to show any sort of weakness, and so they wouldn't report on how many people were dying. And that historians, as such, have not a lot to go on. But one of the inside glimpses at what it was like to be just a regular old person that was seeing their loved ones die and potentially dying from this flu was these blues songs. And I sent you one of them. That is this song about the 1919 flu that was killing people all around, and it was just terrible.
It was 1919. Men and women were dying with the stuff that the doctor called the flu. People were dying everywhere. Death was creeping all through the air, and the groans of the rich sure was sad.
Amen.
Well, and right away.
My great-grandfather died in this
Really?
epidemic.
Yes, you told me this.
My mother's father's father died in the epidemic.
And they're lamenting here in just the opening lines the discrepancy between the rich and the poor. And in our world, current
thank God we've solved that
pandemic, we would be talking about not so much. We could be talking about rich people, but we're also talking about politicians, some of whom aren't rich, but it's more political than simply financial. But the idea that the groans of the rich sure was sad because they were dying too. It's who recorded this?
I sent you
a woman.
This. The singer is a woman. It is Essie Jenkins.
Yes. It was God's almighty plan. He was judging this old land, north and south, east and west. It can be seen. It killed the rich, killed the poor. It's gonna kill just a little more if you don't turn away from the shame. Down in Memphis, Tennessee, the doctor said it would soon be. It's a few days, influenza would be controlled. Dr. Sherman, he got had, sent the doctors all home to bed, and the nurses all broke out with the same.
Yeah, baby.
That's a story, man.
It's a great fucking song.
CNN right now. This
100 years later. 100 years later. Fuck. Maybe in 100 years it won't be the case, but I don't know. We went from riding on donkeys to having fucking HD video cameras in our pockets. But the influenza still kills us.
Hey, I've got to determine, as you well can, the key of this.
Yes.
And you get your new electric guitar.
Yeah, baby.
Out and play along. Get some rhythm guitar going and get ready for a lead. I'll find the harp to it and also the. We
should. That would be fucking gorgeous.
The Jews harp. We'll play it next time we're together. What did I see? Oh! I was going to tell you, in the new version of the third episode of The Godfather, I had noticed before that the Italian band that plays at one of the huge extended wedding scenes when Don Corleone's daughter gets married, that one of the primary instruments in the small band is a Jew's harp.
No shit.
And the way the guy is playing it, I never noticed it before. And you'll like to see it and listen to it. But put it in the show notes. What the fuck? You got nothing else to do.
Yeah, I will go and isolate that exact clip and encode it and upload it and then put it in the show notes.
I saw one more movie. And this has got to be the last story. I gotta go. But channel surfing, come across the movie where I see the cast on just the narrative of who it is, what the movie's about, and it's Al Pacino, Alan Arkin, and Christopher Walken. And
Pacino Walken.
Yes, and it's by the title of it, whatever it is you find it is. It's an old gangster movie, and it was so much fun to watch this. These guys, and they're all elderly and obviously so. Alan Arkin surprisingly looking more fit than the other two. But one of the scenes I want you to think about, because you want to see this.
2012, called Stand Up Guys.
Yes, quite a while ago. And they were old then. But there's a scene near the end where Pacino and Walken's characters are walking toward the camera. And it lasts a while because it's a little bit of a walk. And I want you to look at the absolutely identifiable gaits of these two actors. If you did not know anything except how they were walking, you would know who they were.
So the poster for this movie is a silhouette of the three actors walking, and it actually puts their names on their chests, but it's pretty clear who is who from the silhouettes.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the image for the movie.
There you go. You learn something every happy hour. What the hell?
Influenza is a disease.
Wait, what about
makes you get down?
Does it give you
on your knees?
influenza?
Carries a fever that everyone surely dreads.
Ba-dum, ba-dum.
I don't know the rest. Hey, dark out. When you edit this, when I say the word dreads, cut the episode off. You did a cut like that a couple of episodes ago. I thought it was great.
Well, and then you did it to me, and I kept that in too.
Oh.
So we're mutual there.
Hey, so that's the end. We'll go from there. Hey. This was fun.
I love you, man.
Hey.
Let's do this again next
I
week.
still got half of my second beer left. That's a good sign.
Me too.
That'll keep me from opening up a third one.
That's the key, man. That's it for episode number 107. You can find the show notes at happyhour.fm/107. You can help support us at patreon.com/happyhour. We would really appreciate that. And just go out and have a lovely spring. It's going to be a difficult year, but we'll see. We'll see you next week.